Hey, what's up? This is Pete and Bob, and welcome back to another episode of Underdog Garage. We are getting into part 6, the final part of our Miata rust repair series, where we're fixing the quarter panel and rocker panel on our 2003 Mazda MX5 Miata, and Bob's been doing some awesome magic in the bodywork department to get this quarter panel back up to what it once originally was.
Yeah, a little bit amateur magic, folks. But I'm a testament that you can be a complete bodywork amateur, and if you just take your time and you work through this, even though it's a complex panel, a lot going on with it, we were able to really get it to a stage where it's really starting to look good. But the one thing that was really a challenge for me on this panel is I had never done this much filler work and sanding and all of the other work on a panel that was this much of an extensive repair, where Pete had patched in so much of that new metal. So we had a number of the weld lines that needed to be ground, and so that reestablishing those contours. And this panel, it looks pretty simple, but it's not. There are a lot of contours going on in that thing, from front to back and top to bottom. And we also had a pretty good thump that was on, a repair on the upper portion that was pretty dented in when we got the car. And then, of course, the rut on the lower portion of the panel. So had a lot going on with this thing, a lot of challenges, but we just stuck at it. And that's, what we love to do here is step out of our comfort zone and take on some really cool challenges.
So, with all that said, let's go ahead and get into part 6, where we do the bodywork on this quarter panel.
Okay, let's go. Here I'm taping reference marks to remind me where the end of that kick plate is going to be located. I'm doing this to keep from overextending the finish repair area into an area that really is not going to be visible when we're completed. Next here I'm taping up the non-repair area of the door jamb to protect it from sanding scratches while I'm working the surrounding area. And now it's time to prep that area for body filler by scuffing this first coat of primer that we applied right after the metal work. This is going to give us a good tooth and adhesion for that body filler to attach to. When mixing your filler, use a flat, spreading, smearing kind of stroke. Think about putting down some cream cheese on a bagel. You never want to stir the mud, because it'll introduce air bubbles and those will cause pinholes. Trust me, I learned this the hard way. This first application here is all about beginning to build a level, smooth panel across the weld seam where Pete welded in that new panel. And now it's time to cut this back with some aggressive 60 to 80 grit to prepare for the next build layer. Now I'm switching to my 3-inch and keeping it on a slow speed so I can work in that door jamb area and have a lot more control. This area is tricky because I'm working around with some inner radius and outer curves and different edges. You'll notice I'm removing as much filler as I'm leaving, but that is the incremental method I use to get better results while being an amateur body guy. The next step here is using my contoured sanding sponge with a 220 grit, and I'm going to further work down the curves in the inner radius. Although this area is small, it will take the most fine tuning to get it right. And just when you think everything is going smoothly, I'm all fogged up. I tried to do a little bit of body work with marginal temps. Like, we warmed it up in here. It was February. It was just too cold and it didn't set right. So I had to scrape the whole mess off and basically start over again. So this is sort of a redo. We don't quite have the temps I want tonight. It's like 63 in here. So we're going to wait for another day when it gets closer to 70. Fill and sand, fill and sand, fill and sand. Wax on, wax off. Here I'm cleaning up that last botched fill before I redo the second coat of filler. Just trying to check to see that I'm getting this as flat as possible before the next round. What I've found works for me is to divide the sanding into planes and then work in the in-between areas. The outer panel represents one plane, the flat part of the jamb another, and then that 1-inch strip next to the yellow tape is another plane. This is now round 3 of filler, and what I'm trying to do here is to establish the final contours. At this stage, I prefer to do more hand sanding so I can maintain more control. The sponge is firm, but it has some give. The combination of the grit allows me to get better results and to get it closer to a final look. I'm finishing off this body filler stage with the glaze. This round gives me a fine sandable surface and will fill any pinholes and fine imperfections. We're getting closer to priming. I'm getting to the point where I am happy with the contours on this repair panel and how flat it's getting. I used 220 to start this round of sanding and finished with 320. After finishing the sanding, this panel is ready for paint. Alright, so the bodywork on this quarter panel is finished, and the panel on this Miata is just about ready for primer.
So here you can see a before and after from when we started the panel and when we finished today. And it's really just, this footage just is a big eye-opener and really reminds us, why we started this, and just helped us realize that we'd made the right call to do this and, go through the effort. And we learned a lot from the experience.
Sure did.
And the panels come out great. And it's going to come out even more amazing when we slap some paint on it, or when you slap some paint on it, I should say.
Looking forward to that. But we got to do all the prep work. A good paint job, of course, 95% of it's prep. So my biggest challenge on this was really following my gut. That's my advice to you guys is, don't push the envelope, especially on chemicals and paints, body filler. You saw the big screw up. That was all me just not listening to my gut, because it was like, it's cold, this stuff, if it doesn't perform well, you don't get the mix right, it's not going to set. And, I'm not wanting to go to all of the work and the effort and the expense of putting a top quality paint onto this car and then have this thing come apart, years down the road because I didn't follow the instructions and put the body filler on in good temperature. So I'm actually, when I noticed that it just hadn't set up right, it was like, no, I got to scrape all of this off and start over. And that cost us at least 2 or 3 hours. So follow your gut and don't push the envelope, especially when it comes to chemicals and applications, especially when it comes to paint prep.
Lessons well learned for
Yeah.
sure. So, all right, well, that just about does it for this episode and this Miata Rust Repair series. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it.
Sure do.
Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, leave a comment below if you got it, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes on this project and other projects we got going on at the garage. So thanks again for watching. Have fun, stay motivated.
See you next time.
And we'll see you next time.